Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about how to find the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is the number that is the same in both numbers in your equation. So in this equation, I have 14y and 28. Those have something in common, and that is my greatest common factor. A factor is one of the numbers that can be multiplied to create a number. So a factor of like 14 would be 7 and 2. Those are two factors. So I teach my kids to create a factor tree. That is the easiest way to do this. So I'm going to break up my two numbers. I'm going to put 14y right there, and I'm going to put plus a 28 over here. So I'm going to now create a factor tree. So I'm going to find two numbers that multiply together to be 14y. I always recommend you break up your number and your variable first. So 14 times y equals 14y. I don't know what y is, so that's the lowest I can make it, so I circle it. But 14, I know two numbers that would go into 14. 7 times 2 is 14. So besides the number itself and 1, are there any other factors that can go in 2? So besides 2 times 1, there's no other way to get 2, so I circle it. Besides 7 times 1, there is no other way to get 7, so I circle it. We are essentially circling any prime numbers, if you remember that from elementary school, prime numbers. Okay, next is 28. So to get to 28, the first ones I think of are 14 and 2. 2 is a prime, so I'm going to circle that. The next number that can go into 14 would be 7 and 2. So I'm going to circle both of those. And now all I've done is I've circled all of my primes. So essentially this means 2 times 7 times y plus 2 times 7. I just rewrote it. Now I want to grab what they have in common and I want to pull it out. So I see a 2 and a 7 on both sides, so I'm going to pull out 2 times 7. Alright, so now for my final answer, 2 times 7 is 14. 14 comes outside of the parentheses. I pull out that number. What I'm left with on this side is a y, and what I'm left with on this side is nothing, or 2 times 7 times 1, right? If you pull out everything, when we're multiplying, we just multiply by 1. So all that could be left on that side is a 1. So my final answer would be 14 parentheses y plus 1. I have just pulled out the greatest common factor of this original equation. Okay, we're going to do another example. So my next one looks like this. It says 50x squared minus 15x. I'm going to start by doing the same thing, making a factor tree. So 50x squared will go over here, subtract 15x is going to come right there. So the first thing I want to do is separate my number from my variable. I'm going to have 50 on this side, and I'm going to have x squared right there. X squared is actually x times x, so I'm going to simplify that one more and circle them. Now I'm going to break down 50. 50 can be broken down to 10 times 5. 5 is a prime number, so I circle it. 10 can be broken down to 2 times 5, and both of those are prime numbers, so I circle them. So at this point I have 2 times 5 times 5 times x, subtract. Now I need to break apart this number. First thing I do is I always separate my variable from my number, 15x. X is by itself, so I circle it. 15 can be broken down to 3 times 5. Both of those are prime, so I circle those. So now I have 3 times 5 times x. I want to pull out what they have in common. So on this side, I see a 5 and an x, and on this side, I see a 5 and an x. Because 5 times x is just 5x, that is what comes outside of my parentheses. Now those two are gone. What do I have left on this side? 2 times 5 times x. 2 times 5 is 10, and I just keep my variable. I bring my sign straight down, and what do I have left on this side? A lonely 3, so just a 3. So my answer to that one, by pulling out the greatest common factor, would be 5x parentheses 10x minus 3. Okay, and I'm going to show one more video. This one I have 3 terms. But I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to pull out the greatest common factor from each one. So my first one is 7y to the third, subtract 35y squared, subtract 21y. Doesn't matter which one you start with, I always go left to right, so I'm going to first separate my number from my variable. 7 is a prime number, so I circle it. Y squared, or to the y cubed, sorry, y to the third can be broken down into y times y times y, so I circle all those. So now I have 7 times y times y times y. I keep my subtraction sign over here. I'm going to break it down to 35 and y squared. 35 can be broken down to 7 times 5. Those are both prime, so I'm going to circle those. And y squared is just y times y. So now I have 7 times 5 times y times y. Bring down my subtraction sign. And now I have 21y. Separate my number from my variable. Y is by itself, I circle it. 21 can be broken down to 7 times 3. Those are both prime, so I circle them. So now I have 7 times 3 times y. I want to pull out everything they have in common. So I see a 7 in all of them. And I also see 1y. Okay? Because 7 times y is 7y, that is what I am pulling out. And now I'm essentially ignoring those ones that I just pulled out. Put my parenthesis. Over here I have y times y, which is really y squared. Keep my subtraction sign. In the middle I have 5 times y, which is 5y. Keep my subtraction sign again, and on this other end I only have a 3. So if I am pulling out the greatest common factor, I would have 7y parenthesis y squared minus 5y minus 3. That is the greatest common factor of this. And that is how to do that. Now, my piece of advice is to not skip the factor trees. A lot of kids think they can just do it by not drawing them. And I mean, I'm impressed because as a teacher, I still generally draw my factor trees, okay? Always draw your factor trees. Always write out what you're doing. Don't skip the steps or you're guaranteed to make mistakes along the way.